Because this software lies to me. Welcome to episode 285 of Discography Discussion. I am Discuss Metal Joe, and right down there is a guy named Matt Naas. He is from the Roach Koach. Matt, thanks for keeping it rolling right into
Keep it
Discography
rolling, baby.
Discussion.
I'll say it again. I will say it as much as needed. Keep it
And-
rolling, baby. Oh, check out this fucking pipe, bro.
Nice.
Right?
Keeping it beer can cold down here.
Ooh, I thought
That's for all
knew
my
it was some type
HVAC
of
people.
cold pipe. And without even a moment's notice, Josh Toomey is here from the Talk To Me podcast. Toomey, you're the man. You've got the bass in your hand. Thanks for doing this one, man. We're going to talk about
Thank you.
Clutch tonight.
We are going to talk about Clutch tonight, man. One of my all-time favorite bands, and this has definitely been a journey, kind of going back down the Clutch rabbit hole. So thank you for making me do that today, Joe, and I appreciate that.
You are welcome, because I have to say, Clutch, I don't know what this band is. It might be one of the greatest bands I've ever listened to. I started off thinking this is like that weird 90s acoustic thing, but then they made a left turn and they turned into Tom Waits for a second. Then they wanted to be, I can't remember the name of that band. I lost it again. I even had 2 chances to do it and I messed it up. Days of the New, that's right, the acoustic thing. Then they want to be a blues band. Then they want to be Black Sabbath. I need help, guys. I love this band so much. I ran across Clutch way back when. I don't know where it started for me, but they're one of the bands that always comes up, and then they popped up on a shuffle one day because I was looking for music I hadn't listened to in a while. And of all things, Neil Young with Crazy Horse, Zuma. Hadn't listened to it in a long time. It's a great record. And right below Neil Young, it said, you would like Clutch. Why in the world would my streaming service of choice be recommending Clutch to me listening to Neil Young? Well, I have to say, there's times I wonder if this band really wants to be Neil Young with Crazy Horse, but going back to my original question, I don't know what this band wants to be because they want to be so many different things, and I love most of it.
Well, it's crazy you say that, Joe, because I think Clutch want to be Clutch, and I think that they are probably one of the most consistent bands. And kind of going through the discography that we are going to discuss for this episode, just kind of going all the way back to the first album to what they're doing today, still pretty similar stuff. That I don't feel like they've taken a crazy turn in there. And
they certainly haven't taken a crazy turn, but there's been a turn of sorts. There's been, we'll get there, but like,
there's a lot of options with Clutch.
It's pretty clear at almost the midpoint of their discography that they kind of reached an impasse with where they were, because like they started to repeat a lot of themes and a lot of things started to become like, are we finding new grooves? Are we finding new ways to do this? And I think it really starts to become clear in their second half. And number one, I had no idea how prolific Clutch was. I was an early fan and kind of fell off right around I would say Pure Rock Fury is when, 2001. Yeah, that's about right. I kind of just didn't really hop on to anything past that. But I feel like after Pure Rock Fury, when we get there, that they kind of started to change a little bit. The production started to get a little bit better. Those early records, I don't know who mixed and engineered them, but they needed a little bit more help with the snare, a little bit more help with the vocals, a little muddy in their mix, whereas their new album is just like, wow, this is very polished, very highly produced, sounds very crisp, very clean. The highs are high, the lows are low.
The guitars are panned perfectly left and right, and they play
everything
in sync.
Is where it should be. but stylistically it is just a few degrees different from where they started, and it makes a huge difference for how much I personally enjoy it.
Real
I had-
quickly, real quick before we dive into that, you said you don't know who produced and mastered and mixed these albums. I did a quick search. The Elephant Riders, produced by Jack Douglas, the producer of Honkin' on Bobo. That's all I gotta say.
So I knew it. I fucking knew
I fucking
Bobo
knew it.
was in the room. Hey guys, we're Aerosmith. Let's record a blues album, but only when we feel good. What a fucking dick swing. What a bunch of God,
Come
they're
on,
idiots.
boys, the tape is rolling.
Are we all feeling good? Let's
you
sing
happy
sad
today?
songs.
Too funny.
Wow. Okay, that's a record we need to talk about at some point. Not going to sign you guys
no,
up for
no,
the
no, you
Aerosmith
don't.
discussion yet.
Matt knocked that one out already.
If you don't do the discography of Aerosmith.
But I like some of the early albums. I feel like we've told this story once already today. Well, let's get into Clutch. You know, I'm gonna record the normal plugs and things later on. I have to go back to the beginning of September when I really dug into Clutch again. And I don't remember what record I got on board with this band. I don't have that hindsight. But I always liked Clutch because they had the hard rock vibe I like, but they have a sweet spot for me when I listen to them that reminds me of playing music in the basement with my buddies. Eventually, you hit that jam formula where you're trying to not mimic every band that's come before you, but you just have a cool groove and a cool vibe, and somebody picks up the mic and starts singing vocals. Most of the time, these vocals don't stay with me. And I don't think that's a bad thing because I don't think every song has to be a one-hit, blow you out of the water single. If we had that, I think we'd be talking about a different band. Clutch is a vibe band for me, and I really like how they can go left or right on we're a little bit acoustic, a little bit dirty, and then you get these Escape from Prison Planet songs where the dude is barking at the mic like your favorite, I'm not going to say hardcore vocalist, but they have a few of those too. The band has a volume slider that I don't think this is the only band that does that, but I think Clutch does it the best. And I'm ready to get started with this discography. What about you guys?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yep.
1993. You know what the worst part about being blind is? Sometimes it shows. Transnational Speedway League, 1993.
I did not have this album at release. This was a go back for me. 1993, I am junior high. Yeah, maybe first year of high school. Yeah, first year of high school. So Nirvana's hit in 92. Everything's grunge. Everything's grunge. Everything's grunge again. Like,
Matt,
we're talking.
Question.
Yeah.
93, right?
Yep.
Was it grunge?
I mean, was it? Who knows? What we were listening to was Nirvana 24/7, or Pearl Jam somebody else had on, or it was I was not a Stone Temple Pilots fan, but that was on. There's plenty of people discovering the Pixies around me. So it was just really getting off of commercial rock radio of the late 80s into kind of, hey, there's been this college scene that's been happening since the mid 80s into the early 90s. And here's like, we had an alternative station locally, and they're like, here's all of it. Here's all this music that has actually been made that you don't know exists because you listen to the radio because it's the 90s and there's no such thing as Spotify. So coming back to Clutch, like I got introduced to Clutch with the second album, the self-titled, and then went back in time because my friend Chet was into them. This album is, to me, one of a great example of a statement of purpose albums. Like, your first album should say a lot about who you are as a band and what you're about. It is evident that these guys have chops. The fucking rhythm section is insane. I love also they have this thing that they kind of keep, that they are deadly serious about being somewhat goofy. Like, when you take a look at, I mean, first song in, a Shogun named Marcus, you get to the end and it's like, these lyrics, when you don't know what's coming, take a real turn. It's like, so bebop a loobop a wop shambo and domo arigato if I got to. Rolls off the tongue. Chef's kiss. But like, there's not a moment in listening to this album that I don't fucking believe these guys ticket punched. The groove is so rock solid. Again, you'll come back to the rhythm section over and over and over on this band, because their lead singer, he has a very unique voice, Neil Fallon, super one of a kind of voice. But I would say that it's I'm going to say it wrong, Jean-Paul Gaster and Dan Maines. The Dan Maines is on bass, Jean-Paul Gaster is on drums. They are the concrete of this fucking band. Like, they are the Clutch sound. It almost sounds like they have two basses playing at the same time. For a long time, that was the like, my friends for some reason thought Clutch was a 2-bass band, and I guess the only real reason is because he's such a weird baritone when he sings. But yeah, first impressions, best impressions. This is a great band.
Well, I got into this album. I got into this album when it came out. This was heavy on Headbangers Ball at the time. I was thinking about today, like I truly remember listening and to a Shogun named Marcus. They played, it typically was like one of the last videos on Headbangers Ball, and I would tape Headbangers Ball and watch it over and over and over. And then kind of a series of events in '94, I go see Pantera. Prong is opening for Pantera, and then Prong a couple of months later comes through, and it's Prong with Clutch opening and a band called Drown as like a 3-band bill. And I was like, oh, that's that band we like from Headbangers Ball, and we met them that night and all that stuff. And this album, I was listening to I was 94, first Korn album, which Matt hates and the Roach Koach podcast despises.
You're never going to live that down, Matt.
We loathe it. It's just not fun, guys.
I'm listening to, at this time in my life, I'm listening to a lot of like Biohazard.
Who listens to Daddy and has a good time?
And kind of, and this album fit right in with me, and kind of even going back and listening to it, it has its papa moments, and I know this is discography discussion, not
I'll allow it.
But it's got some pop elements to it, man, and the grooves and the nonsensical lyrics, and just I remember all that stuff kind of coming together and just blowing my mind at the time, and I absolutely loved this album. And then we go into the next album, and I was like first day buyer of the second album, and I've definitely got some thoughts about that. But just this album at the time, everything I was listening to, late 94 or 93, I'm 14 years old, just immersed into music, and this was a staple of my 1994.
Well, you guys really want to get to that second self-titled album, and I'm not going to hold you back, but I do want to talk about this album. For me, I'm sure I heard it back in the day, whatever that means. I never bought this album, but I really enjoyed listening to it this week because it reminds me of the first time I heard We Care a Lot by Faith No More. You guys really sat down and listened to that album? It's the album that came first before the album that has Epic on it. And you can hear that Faith No More, what we were eventually going to get, that many people would argue. I'm checking for Matt Naas, making sure he's not here. Some people say Faith No More created nu metal with Epic. And depending on what day it is, I like to agree that they were a papa. We're going to allow that term because Matt's here, right?
Yeah, I mean, you got a sweet cosign.
So this album, if I had found Clutch first and bought this, I would not have been disappointed. Everything's there. It's just the first record. It doesn't blow me away, but I enjoy the 90s vibe and the laid back nature of the groove. It's something that I think the 90s have a special way of mixing not so loud elements with grooves and calling it grunge. But then you have Nirvana, you have Pearl Jam, you have bands that were from Seattle or influenced from Seattle that were trying to do the pure punk thing. And what is punk? Is it speed and 3 chords, or is it non-standard songwriting? This sounds more like a band that comes out of the 70s where the musicians are playing together. And whatever vocals, whatever story comes out of this lead singer's mouth is what you get. So
I can see that. One of the things that kind of hit me listening to this again is I always, when I especially listen to the first album, I'm trying to picture they're from Maryland. You couldn't tell me that they weren't from Texas because I'm like, this band smells like Texas. I don't know how the fuck they came from Maryland. Literally everything about them it says Texas Road to me. Like them listening to ZZ Top would not be a surprise at all. But like I try to imagine them in their local scene playing local shows. And this first record, I hear it, and it's like you saw these guys at your local VFW hall on like a 10-band bill, and it's just like Clutch fucking murdered everybody. Like, Jesus, like Clutch, I don't know, man. Clutch, there's something about Clutch. Like that's the opinion because everything's so fleshed out. Like a lot of, I mean, if I were to put out a first album today, it would not be this cohesive.
Right.
all right. Well, let's get to it. 1995. The first album I bought, but I didn't buy it in 95. Gentlemen, Clutch is an album by a band called Clutch. And
I'll take
do it to me.
I'll take it, man. I went to the media play the day that this album came out, bought it on cassette because I was poor and we only had a cassette deck in the car. I remember, opening it up, and I'm a huge Transnational fan. Like I'm loving Clutch at this time. I put this album in and did not get it at all day one. I was just like, this is not the Clutch I want. I don't know what they've done with my Clutch. I don't get it, but I guess it was the time of cassettes and I spent, 10, 12, 15 bucks on a cassette. So I'm going to give it some time. And it grew on me and grew on me and grew on me. Now it's my favorite. Don't get me wrong. But just first listen, I'm just like, what is this stoner rock jam band, coming out of nowhere with things like Big News and Space Grass and things like that, man. So first listen, I was not a fan, but man, they definitely took what they were doing on Transnational, brought it into this self-titled album and put out a masterpiece.
Space Grass, Escape from the Prison Planet. Monster Magnet was the band I was trying to say earlier when I was laying down that list of fucking bands that Clutch just turns into from time to time. And this album, to me, I still catch myself hearing these songs without paying attention. And I have to look twice and say, oh, wait, that's not Monster Magnet. There's too many layers to those vocals. But I like the simplified explanation there, Toomey. It has the stoner rock vibe, and it's another piece of the Clutch puzzle. More and more, and especially this past week, really listening to these records, trying to get ready for this show, and I kept telling myself, this band is like Neil Young and Crazy Horse all over again for me. They must just go into the studio and lay it down, and when they have enough pieces of it that they like, they just put that out. The discography is like a run-on sentence, and this doesn't have the thin 90s punky production, not like the previous record, but it is Clutch in name, in reality, and it has everything that I love about this band in one place. I like the way the record, more so than the previous, just can be loud, can be not loud, and it's just as intense. The visual for me was always Days of the New. It's supposed to be like a heavier rock, but they're playing acoustics on purpose. Only like they're almost like they're limiting themselves to no distortion. And Clutch is not that, but they're the 90s version of a 70s or 60s jam band where they just get on stage, they have a general idea of what they're going to do, they have some hooks that they're going to come back to, and the end result is a killer fucking record.
Matt,
Clutch is unfucking stoppable.
Yeah.
It is so front loaded. It is insane. Big News to Big News 2, to what were you looking at? Rock and Roll Outlaw, Texan Book of the Dead, Escape from the Prison Planet to Space Grass. That's an insane side one. Like, what are we talking about here? And then the back half, I like Animal Farm. That's probably like one of those songs for me that is just like, again, this band that like ultra heavy in its sound, not so much heavy as in like, oh my God, it's I can't take it. It's so brutal. No, it's like the bass, the way that the album is engineered and produced is like dunk the whole fucking thing in mud and then rerun it through your stereo system. It is very it's not like sleep sludgy, but it's like it's got weight to it. The album has heft. It isn't thin, except there are times where his vocal, they're using a vocal effect on him, and it sounds almost mismatched. I've come to love it, but like the first time hearing it, I was like, what is happening with this vocal? Like, it's so weird. Space Grass is a infinitely bizarre song that never really drops. And I'm like, what? They are very good at kind of like amping up, but there's so much tension in that song that I want a bigger release, but instead I just get to sing, "How's up, Space Grass? Saturday's my rotary." Like, it's such a, these guys are fucking weirdos. And it's so, like when I think of the beginning of some of these songs, I'm like, I hear Primus influences, but like it kind of just goes into this allowed to be somewhat weird, which I don't see too much of in modern records. Like just a desire, unless it's just like full on avant-garde. And I'm sure because everything's so niched out, I could find some really bizarre, crazy wackadoo shit. But like, this is a mainstream
Crazy wackadoo shit.
But like, this is a mainstream rock record from the 90s, and it's gonzo. Like, it is beyond the like. I was listening to Big News, listening to Escape from the Prison Planet, like. They're in, I think it's Animal Farm, where he's like, "Little green men not coming your way. Tastes just like chicken, they say. Actually, they're all around. Secret bunkers under fucking rolling. Rawhide is how that ends." And it's like, what are they like that they got away with it? That I listen to that and I don't think that's dumb. Speaks to like how they are as a unit and as a band. Again, this rhythm section, holy shit, guys. Like, you can't buy this. You cannot buy what those two guys are doing for the rhythm section. And then you got the guitarist who can just dance and float on top of it and do what he needs to do. Like, this is a very, very powerful band, especially at this point with these records where I feel like they're kind of unfettered by anything and just really swinging for the fences. Because spoiler alert, I think their last records are pretty safe. Like this, this feels like a humongous swing, and I think it hits really hard and it plays really well and it holds up really well. I don't listen to it and think, whoa, this is super dated. Like, this feels relevant. It feels current. I love this record. But I still think Spacecraft should have a better drop. Whatever.
It should have a drop, not a vocal.
Yeah, I just wanted something, but it's just like, but it's Spacecraft. It's like, that is what it does. It is a song about tension. And it made me look up the Dodge Swinger, the Galaxy 500, Suicide Doors. Come on, guys.
Yeah. Things ain't so bad.
It's the car from the beginning of Entourage. I fucking hate that song.
I love this record. I love this band. This is definitely the baseline for is the new Clutch record as good as Clutch? But you're right. It's different than what was happening in the 90s. And if I look up my timelines and really try to point out all the changes in what was popular at the time, or when did that Monster Magnet album come out versus when did that Alice in Chains record come out, I'm sure I could find something to disprove what I'm about to say, but I don't hear a band in the 90s that sounds like Clutch or that is releasing records like Clutch that wasn't a pre-existing band from the 70s or even further back that were used to doing that. It's like Clutch was secretly that jam band of musicians that just got up front and did their best Mike Patton impression and just got really weird and in everybody's faces. And look, guys, we're goofy. We talk about really weird shit sometimes, but we're not going to step on that distortion pedal. No, it's there for show. We got our shorts on. We're new metal as fuck. We're ready to go. We're playing all the grunge songs that you like. No, we're not. Is there another band that is just blatantly this? Because it sounds modern to me, but this wasn't modern. This was modern in 95, and it's kind of the opposite of what everybody was trying to make popular. But the 90s also was in favor of that not mainstream. If it didn't sound like the 80s, it was a good thing most of the time. That's what I remember, and that's what I've been told.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about this is lyrically, Neil Fallon throughout the entire catalog is pretty nonsensical. But I mean, at the time, you know, back to the first Korn record, you know, you've got Chutes and Ladders and all that nonsense going on. Then you've got all of the grunge stuff that just, you know, Kurt Cobain and Nirvana just making nonsensical lyrics up too. So I mean, it wasn't out of place to hear, you know, what was coming out of Neil's mouth.
I think it's time we talk about the Elephant Riders from 1998.
I was a lot less familiar with this album, so this was kind of a delight to get into. It is a different album, obviously, than Clutch, but there's a lot of things that are starting to become like Clutch staples, like bass lines that go do 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 do, like that feeling. Yeah, like that feeling is locked in like hell.
We have a fuzzy guitar. The bass and the guitar are going to do the same thing for a while. Then the guitar is going to stop. The bass is going to keep doing it. And then the vocals are going to come in. And who the fuck knows what this guy is saying?
Yeah. And for me, it's like kind of visiting it with fresh ears. I was like, this is a quality Clutch album. I enjoyed it. but it's one of those things where now that I'm listening to the whole discography, I already know which ones I'm going back to. I was like, okay, this is, if I was a Clutch fan at the time and I bought this in 98, I had been like, awesome. I got another one I can roll with all night. I'm in good shape. I don't feel like they've left me in the dust. This is still very much the Clutch that I've come to love at this point in their discography.
Yeah, man. When this one came out, obviously I'm deep in my Clutch fandom, and honestly, a friend of mine's band got to open some of the shows on this tour, so I went along as a lackey roadie guy, and we did like a week with Clutch on this tour cycle, and so like this one is the one that like when I think back to like seeing Clutch a lot, being around the guys in Clutch, and just like this just hit me, but we were sitting on the bus with Clutch and a fan came on and we were having like everybody sitting around just having a fun time joking, and this guy came on and he goes, man, I just want to let you know that, my friend just died. And when they pulled the cassette out of the cassette deck, he was listening to Clutch in the car accident. And I mean, it was a heavy, heavy story. And I was just like, man, I couldn't imagine just being bombarded with like those type of stories all the time. Like, man, my friend died and you guys were his favorite band and all that stuff, man. That I remember that story just changing the vibe of the room into just like, wow, that's just insane.
It's way too like, well, like that's a weird thing about just meeting these quote unquote celebrities or whatever that means to you. Like the people who have influenced your life is like, I have a lifetime of experience with this thing that you created that you have no idea about.
Right.
And I've got 30 seconds to project that onto you.
Yeah.
I'm about to blow your mind with all this truth about this record you wrote once.
Yeah. So this is probably going to be too much.
Right.
I think that's why most meet and greets just turn into big fan. Love you guys.
Sign my stuff. Take my photo. I'll post the story on my Instagram later. This album, though, overall, I think this one does stand out a little bit in the discography. I think it definitely hit all the points that I wanted at the time. It's definitely got a vibe to it. Maybe that's a little bit different than the rest of the discography. 8 Times Over, Miss October, and the Soap Makers, and the Yeti, and the Dragonfly is a great closer, and obviously Elephant Riders as an opener. That's one thing with this band I did notice throughout the discography. They know how to track one the shit out of a record.
Yeah, they do.
They come in hot.
Even when they make changes to the overall presentation, they still set you up for success. And for me, I started listening to this record and I went back to the end of the 90s and I remembered what it was like to buy albums that were the second or third from that favorite band you have, and especially in the early 2000s. I've heard so many second and third albums that just don't sound as good as the previous records. And even though this one was different, I had to remember I'm not the fan who came in on Transnational Speedway League. I heard Clutch first. And this, to me, is just a solid follow-up. If I was 15, 16, learning to play guitar, I wouldn't get why this one's not as dirty as the previous, because I look for that when I'm looking at my rock and roll, which is what I would call this. I think the band plays with that definition over their entire career and stretch that in every direction the way bands used to. When it was just a word, they were trying to come up with how to describe these bands that one day would just play the bluesiest, dirtiest thing you've ever heard. And then the next week, they want to do the most progressive thing you've ever seen or heard on stage, where they build an entire wall out of foam and you just stare at the wall instead of the band. What does that have to do with Clutch? I had to come back to hearing albums as a young listener who I didn't know the difference between what they were trying to do or what they wanted to present to me and what I was expecting the album to sound like. With 2022 ears, this is the most solid follow-up. It doesn't have to be as heavy, because what does that even mean? The band is solid. They still have the energy, but they're using more of what they did on Clutch, I think, and less from Transnational Speedway, where they're not putting on makeup audibly. They're just playing songs at this point, and I think that's what Clutch is trying to state is their thing. We're just going to play songs, and sometimes they're going to make sense. Sometimes it's just going to be a good vibe. There's not a lot of vocals that stand out to me as a whole from this band, but they do have some fun hooks, and I think that's the vibe of Clutch. It's just going to be fun. It's just going to be good. Let it be. Don't try to find the deepest thing in there. Because when this band gets together, I don't think they're trying to create deep music. They're just trying to create music.
Right.
I don't even know if they're trying to party as much as they're just trying to be weird and have fun playing music. They might be one of the best musician-oriented bands ever that are not playing 27 layers of orchestration.
Well, that's the
rock
one thing
band,
with the band was being around them, and even when I would just go see the shows, even when I was younger, 15, 16, 17, I would go early to the venue, try to stake out the bus, try to meet the band or whatever. And Clutch was one of those bands that John Paul would set up a drum kit at 2 p.m. and just play. Not in a room, you could hear him playing for hours, and just because he likes playing drums. There's a lot of bands out there that they only pick up their instrument when they're on stage, and then they get off and then they do whatever they want. Like Clutch is a band that they thoroughly enjoy playing music. And that's the one thing about the live show. If you go see Clutch, they're not jumping around the stage. They're not doing all kinds of crowd work and all this other stuff. I mean, Dan's playing bass, just standing still, and Tim's kind of just jamming on the guitar, and John Paul's jamming on the drums, and Neil is kind of the show. But as for a live show, you're not going to get dragons coming out of the PA. You're going to get just a really good rock show, and they do bring it live every time they play.
I think we should talk about the Jam Room, 1999.
This one I don't have much. I don't have much history with, and the more as I was kind of reading about it now, I mean, I vaguely remember this album coming out, and it even kind of just says it was a limited release, and just I remember there being issues around this album and it not coming out properly or something.
Man, it was so hidden and deep in the discography that I didn't listen to it at all. I did a really good job in my research. I saw it today at right before we recorded, and I was like, well, missed that one. Shouldn't have listened
Sorry,
to those,
guys, but
those 3 EPs that came out in 2020, 2021. But yeah, sorry guys, I don't have much to say about the Jam Room. Yeah, I heard that it came out overseas and it never came out here, and then it did come out here, and I don't know anything about it other than what Wikipedia told me.
what did the wonderful wiki tell you about this record, Matt?
Oh, did you know that the initial release contained 12 tracks in 1999 and was a European only release? And then it had to be an import from their home country of US, but in 2004 it was reissued by Megaforce Records with 3 additional tracks because it was. And the version of Sink 'Em Low found on the reissue is the demo version of the same track found on Pure Rock Fury, which is faster and heavier. So
that's what I thought too.
I'm going to tell you guys the truth. I listened to this record for the first time about a month ago, and I thought it was a really solid, almost demo sounding Clutch album. It's hard to listen to these records with no hindsight, because I can't look back and say, this is why this record was so significantly different. I don't think this one was different as much as the band just got into a studio with a different producer and they went for it. And it cosmetically sounds different, but it's still Clutch. So why would a band not release an album everywhere? When I look back on every example of that I can find, it always comes down to money, licensing, or we made a deal and we had to do this, so this is what we did. Is there a standout track on this album? Sure. Listen to the record and enjoy all of the glorious jam tracks by Clutch, because I kind of think Jam Room is a literal statement in this case. It sounds like they're just making it up, and that's
like
fine.
somebody was like, "Oh, we already got it mic'd. Just
Go
hit
for it."
record."
Yeah, I mean it's a great record. If I bought it for you and gave it to you and said, "Here, Matt, Merry Christmas," you would put the album on and be like, "Dude, that was a good vibe." But I gotta say, I'm gonna go back to Clutch and listen to that one again. This is a nice gift you gave me. Maybe I'll listen to it again in another 10 to 15, 20 years.
Hey, what's the name of this song? I don't know. Gnome Enthusiast.
Gnome Enthusiastical. Going to market. $1 raised by horses.
Yep.
That's a deep cut
That
right
is,
there, guys.
that is just guys making up words.
And for those who like to compare this band to Primus sometime, there is in fact a song on this album called Bertha's Big Backyard.
There we go.
And also, this record was recorded in Silver Spring, Maryland, which is an edge city that has a population of 81,000 residents, as according to the 2020 census. Just a little tidbit.
Just a little something that you know.
I just knew that off the top of my head.
Well, before I let Josh Toomey and Matt Naas continue to read facts from the internet, 2001 Pure Rock Fury.
So for me, this is the end of phase one Clutch.
Oh no.
Like
Don't end it now, Matt.
No, this is it's not a bad thing. But this is the last record that kind of sounds closest to the old stuff. After this, they're going to start mixing some of the old with some of the new, and some of the new. And when I say, and it's not NU umlaut, I'm talking about, I like,
gotta make sure you get that umlaut in there.
Yeah, I got to get that umlaut in there. Pure Rock Fury, it's good. I have no problems with this album. I'm wondering what happens to a band like Clutch when a band like Queens of the Stone Age starts having success around them. And I feel like they started not that that's the catalyst, but this is now Matt Naas rock theories, so
it's a great idea for their show, by the way.
But like they are a stalwart of this stoner rock scene, of this kind of bass heavy driven artistic effort. And here comes the first Queen of the Stone Age in 2000, and here's this album in 2001. And the songcraft, although very much Clutch, starting to change just a little, just a touch. And his vocals are starting to become just a little cleaner. Just a hint, a whisper. The band's starting to change a little bit. I think they have to, but this is the record that I see as kind of like the end of the first part of Clutch, where it was like those first 4 records are very much like, yep, this is who they are. I know what this is. And now something different is going to be happening. I might be wrong.
Did the throwback trend happen? Was that 2001 or 2003 ish?
Are we talking about like the bands?
A lot of the bands, and hey, we know the 80s was all about hair, but do you guys remember the 70s? The 70s was fun. People played music in the 70s. The band that comes to mind is The Darkness and Wolf Mother, who were just blatantly not grunge, not the 90s, not new metal, not hardcore or metalcore or anything that would happen in the mid 2000s. They were 100% throwback to we just play songs. Even what the Mars Volta did in the very beginning, I think is some of that. Is that right around this time? Because when you mentioned STP a second ago, my thought was this album sounds like what I expected this band to sound like in the 90s. Just crank up the room mic a little bit more, and this is 1993.
I think this is 2001. I mean, this is the height of
Queens of the
nu
Stone Age.
metal.
Sorry, I said
Well,
STP. I'm sorry, Matt.
No problem.
and what's funny is like a song like "Careful with That Mic" is I honestly think is just an answer to, if you guys are going to do this like rap metal, like I'm just going to show you how smart I am, and put this kind of like, you know, Clutch rap metal together, which is, you know, I still laugh about a JanSport style backpack. You know, I to this day when I go to the school shopping or whatnot, I'm like, you got to get a JanSport, you know, straight edge style backpack and stuff like that. But I think this album, this is a great album. I love this album, and yeah, Careful with That Mic, I think that is definitely a standout track on this one.
I like how this one ramps up going into Pure Rock Fury. What you guys said earlier is 100% true. They know how to track one, but they know how to drive into track two sometimes, and this is a almost perfect example. The energy of the band doesn't match all of the production choices, in my opinion. I get the impression these guys are very stubborn about tone, in that they don't want to sound like everybody else. They want to just sound like Clutch. The guitars are blatantly 60s, 70s, neck pickup, hard rock. The drums are almost blatantly a throwback. And when I say throwback, I mean what we did before we started triggering everything and before we started capturing dozens of room mics. You know, the Black Album is a bit of a unique example because the 80s were all about reverb. Then we started using digital drums. But now you have a band like Clutch who you have microphones and your faces and the instruments. Good luck. And they don't really deviate from that past the first couple albums. It's always a little bit different. It's a little bit warmer. It's a little bit more gain. But beyond that, when you're listening to Clutch, you get energy without getting blatant distortion most of the time up to this point.
Yeah, I think the Pure Rock Fury is man, that might be a quintessential Clutch track too. It's just like the driving drums and everything else with it, man. I think that you know, just going back to this one was a nice little treat.
Delectable. Just
Delectable.
It's a tasty treat.
Chew it up.
So this is where Clutch, the first phase of Clutch ends for you, Matt. Why is that?
I think it's as well. What we're gonna see going forward is, if you're in a heavy rock and roll band long enough, you end up in a biker bar, and you just start singing straight ahead rock songs, and that's the tack I see them taking kind of from here on in. We're gonna start losing, even though the subject matter is still somewhat weird and bizarre. The vocal techniques are straight ahead rock and roll instead of like what we've had so far. And sometimes it feels like I'm going to Buttsburg, and I don't like it.
Don't take us to Buttsburg, man. Don't go.
I don't want to go there, guys. The thing is, their musicianship is still so fucking good, but the vocalist, our friend, starts to do some different things, and I'm not a fan. I'm just gonna be honest. I'm gonna be the curmudgeon who's like, oh, I like the old shit.
Up until this point, you've got 5 records, or if you take out Jam Room, 4 records of very solid and very intentional, not taking ourselves seriously, just creating a good groove. And even though the vocals don't stand out to me most of the time, one of the words you said earlier was smart. Let me show you how smart I am. There is some intelligence with the play on words. I say some intelligence. Wow, that just sounds terrible. Sorry, guys. What I meant to say was there is intelligence behind that wordplay. I think this band is, up until this point, a breath of fresh air in any scenario. And I think they will maintain that going forward. But if we're gonna, there I said but again. Sorry, Matt. If we're gonna go in the direction of, can I say safety? Or is it really just we got comfortable and we've got our vibe and we're gonna stick with it?
That's hard because I don't want to be like this band is copping out because I think that's bullshit. I don't think they are. I think they fucking go for it every time. But the tack that they're taking is just not where I want to go. But like I hear all these things and I'm just like, it's like Motorhead. It's like you're in for a fucking night. This is gonna be a good time. These guys are great and they're gonna take care of you. Like that part they have locked in. I think it's much more like you could go to a Clutch show today and you're gonna get your face rocked off. These guys rock, period, the end. But their newer stuff is much more maybe they're trying to broaden their audience.
Whoa, man.
I don't know, but it just is kind of like there's something else happening that in the newer records that's not happening in the older ones.
Let's get there. 2004, Blast Tyrant.
So when you said Sabbath earlier, I hear a lot of Sabbath, especially this lead-off track. I mean, Mercury is like, oh, okay, yep, got it. Got it.
Just jump right in, Matt. That is exactly what I'm saying.
And
I love
it follows
Clutch
Josh's
because they
number
go,
one track. They know how to kick off an album. That is a strong open.
They go every direction possible. And if this is the next era for this band, I say good choice stepping up the production, guys, because in 2004, producers in the hard rock and heavy metal genres were making decisions that I still don't understand. There is
This was Machine. This is a Machine.
Yeah, the last two have been Machine.
So that's why it sounds great.
Yeah,
Right.
that is exactly why.
Well, it could have been a bad year. Is what I'm trying to say. I love the way this record sounds because turn it up. Everybody else was turning it down or was making records with the newest digital technology and were just making terrible cosmetic choices, probably in protest of MP3 sharing sites such as your Napsters and your Kazaa, your Morpheus, and all those other sites that popped up. I just love how this record is a clear step into, guys, you play good. I'm going to make you sound really good.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those albums when I saw it like on paper and I was like, I don't know if I'm familiar with Blast Tyrant. And then I go back and listen to it. I'm like, all right, yeah. Like almost every album in Clutch's catalog, I went into this. I'm like, I don't know if I know that one. And then other than Jam Room, I play it. I'm like, oh yeah, I know this one. I guess what I'm trying to say is where I thought I fell out of the Clutch fandom somewhere, but I don't think I did. I've never been a like song title album guy. Like I just love the band. But
surprise, guys, you've been there the whole time.
right? Yeah, I mean, like the mob goes wild. I mean, what a great, please allow me to introduce myself and all that stuff. And
Yep.
the regulators, a classic Clutch track on this one. But yeah, I think when Matt keeps kind of talking about the newer Clutch, I think I think they're playing it safe, man. I think they've got a sound, they know
Yeah.
what works. I mean, you said it
His
perfect
vocals are
with it.
much more straightforward.
Yeah.
Like in the mix, and the way that he's singing is much more like bar bandy. I hate to fucking like it. Just it's like there's a grit that he still has at this moment
Yeah.
that I'm not hearing in the new stuff, and I think that's a choice, and that's fine. But it is a little bit in the pocket.
It's kind of like the Roach Koach podcast. When it started out, it was all over the map, characters everywhere, just not putting the first corn in. But now, they're
He's not going to let it die, Matt.
335 episodes in. I mean, you know what you're going to get when you get a Roach Koach. You're going to get a couple of hacky jokes. Going to talk about
Just
the album.
A bore. Just turn it off. Hate it.
But
hacky jokes.
No,
How
just
dare you?
Damn,
I feed my daughter with those jokes. She hasn't eaten in weeks.
It's a much more
starving.
It's a much more polished, podcast now. No, but I'm just busting your balls, Matt.
I was playing. I know, playing, buddy.
I don't know how this whole
wait till I
improv
tell
thing works.
Lauren and Jenny about this.
Josh,
I'm texting right now.
Toomey, you're about to get a lesson on
Jenny
improv. You give, you take. He was giving, you weren't taking, man. Come on.
I wasn't yes-anding.
Oh, how dare you both? How dare you both mention improv in front of me?
Not having fun anymore, Matt.
I don't know what to do with my hands.
What do I do with my hands? They're so weird.
Oh, that's right. We're talking about Clutch.
We are talking about Clutch. In the Clutch.
I really, really like this album, guys. I have to admit, if there's one album I've listened to almost as much as the self-titled Clutch, it's this one, according to my stream statistics. I really, really enjoy this album, but I hear the bar band that you brought up a second ago. Inevitably, when a band finds its groove and they let go of their bullshit, most of the time it sounds like this. We've got good equipment now, or good enough equipment now. We know how to play a groove together. But on the other hand, this album is a good example of the lyrics just don't hit with me. They're more of an instrument in the way they're presented. It's entertaining, and the entertaining aspect of the vocals does hang around, but I don't sit down and write down my favorite Clutch lyrics. Not on Blast Tyrant.
Well, if you sit down and write down your favorite Clutch lyrics and someone comes behind you and sees what you wrote down, they might commit you, because it's banana sandwich. One thing about this album cover, I know when we were kids, you go to the record store and you see an album and it's got an awesome album cover and you're like, I don't even care what this sounds like. I'm going to take it home because it's awesome. And I'm going to show all my friends how cool this album cover is. This album cover is the exact opposite of that. Like this might be one of the worst things I've ever seen.
Which came first, this or Squidbillies?
Right. This is terrible.
And maybe sometimes, like in listening to it, I do take the band too seriously. And, but when I hear lyrics like, and a big bloodhound in the back of a checked up Ford, I personally check out. Like, my spirit leaves my body for a moment, because I don't, even if it's kind of like teasing, I'm like, no, this is not engineered for me. If it's for you, perfect. But I'm like, when can we turn this off? Even if it's like poking fun at that idea, I'm like, I'm good. That's when I say like things start to turn, that's the type of thing that I'm talking about.
You guys want to talk about the Robot Hive or Exodus, depending on which slash of this album I'm supposed to be reading. 2005, for the most part, Clutch puts out an album every couple of years, and this is one of the examples where 2 years in a row you get a new album from Clutch. I would have said this is when Clutch decided to move on to the next era of the band, but I'm anxious to hear what you guys think. I don't hate this album, but this is the sound that other bands who want to sound like Clutch just verbatim they want to sound like this record. It is almost too clean for Clutch. I like listening to it, but this is the baseline for that Monster Magnet comparison I said earlier. Every time the band is going in that direction, this is how you get to that sound. I don't hate it, but it's fine. It's Clutch. It rocks. There's a song on here that's just zeros and ones.
Classic.
Which I will bring up right now might be top 10 Clutch song for me. Like, I love that song. I don't know why, but it's definitely up there in one of my favorite Clutch tracks. But yeah, again, another one of those like Robot Hive Exodus. I've never heard this album, and then I play it, and I'm like, oh yeah, I know this album. But yeah.
Why has Toomey heard all these Clutch songs before?
I don't know. Maybe I'm a fan. But yeah, I mean, I think Clutch is also one of those bands where you can just kind of throw on Spotify or whatnot and just hit shuffle and be okay with, and you're gonna get an okay day out of some Clutch tracks. But yeah, 10001110101, one of my favorite tracks.
Let's push forward.
Matt wants to push.
I have nothing new to say. I'm like...
But it's Clutch, guys, and this is the point where it turns into a speed round with this band. They're not doing anything wrong for Clutch. It sounds like Clutch, but if you're expecting Clutch in 2005 or at any point in the next 15 years to really reinvent themselves, again, they make some cosmetic left turns that I really enjoy, and we're going to point those out when we can, but you're going to get as much consistency as you ever wanted from your favorite band when you listen to Clutch. 2007, From Beale Street to Oblivion.
This is
Matt, what do you got for me?
This is where the blues rock tag starts to show up a little more prominently. And I feel like maybe that's what I'm trying to put my finger on, where it's just like, I don't want them to be ZZ Top. I want them to be Clutch. But like, there's songcraft and a singing delivery style that blues rock calls on that I only like the very beginning of the genre, and everything newer in it I'm not particular to. And when I hear like Mr. Shiny Black Cadillacs, I tune out immediately. Again, it's another one where I'm like, wrap it up, boys. Turn it off. Hit the lights. And if it's in jest or if there's a joke I don't get, I understand it. I'm dense as fuck. It is not for me. I don't like it. I like Clutch, but this is the part I am now fully in. Like, no, not what I want. not what I want at all.
Are you trying to stop progress, Matt Naas from the Roach Koach?
Like, why do we always have to go back to blues rock? Like, why do we do this? Why did Aerosmith record Honkin' on Bobo, guys?
We always go back to blues rock because it's fun and it doesn't require a lot of effort most of the time. When you've really been digging in and trying to write the next big hit, and you've played however many shows and you've done however many meet and greets where you heard stories that just break your heart all day long because everybody has a story. you want to just play music sometimes. And maybe Clutch is just not afraid to play music sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, this one to me is I mean, Electric Worry on this album, that's an all-timer for Clutch's catalog. And yeah, I can see where if Matt isn't into the kind of the blues side of Clutch, then yeah, from here on out, you might as well just like, I'll see you next week, Matt. But like,
Yeah. Keep pushing forward.
but the
If I bought it on a vinyl and gave it to you, would you want to listen to it then?
I probably would, and then I would probably sell it.
I would get the MP3s off of it and then listen to it later. But no, this is definitely the Clutch sound now. Like everything from here on out, it's not good, it's not bad, it's just Clutch. It's like, it's like a bologna sandwich from here on out. Like, it's pretty good. Like it's
But like that early, like that Tom Waits delivery style, gone. Like, we are into straight ahead singing at times. Yes, he can still do like other things, but we're starting to hear that recur. Like, it's not just one track with that, it is now multiple tracks with that style. Whereas like before it was like a spice, and now it's becoming the main ingredient. My Midwest made ingredient goes straight into my nose. It was like just the Midwest, where nasal congestion just lives.
Can I get some hamburger with that black pepper, Matt? The spice is the main ingredient now.
Yeah, I just want a plate of pepper.
2009. Strange Cousins from the West. I appreciate this album title, and I appreciate the fact that Clutch is going full dirty blues. I enjoyed it. The journey that this band took me on over the course of, at this point, 17 years. I liked the journey, but I have to ask if I was just too young to really appreciate Clutch when all the decisions they make apply to me 3 years ago, not 15 years ago. Clutch is just a breath of fresh air when everything else you listen to is some variation of modern metal with multi-layered vocals and perfect sounding drums and all of the hardcore vocals, all the metalcore vocals, all of the crazy keys that bands have used, however many episodes we've done. 284. Guys, this is 285. I've been doing this show a long time. Clutch is a band I reach for when I need a break. But I'm listening to this and asking, but when I listen to this, I'm asking, is this band just, are they time travelers? Did they take music back in time just to screw with us? Because that sounds like something Clutch would do, just to be goofy and just to fuck with you.
Yeah, this album, when I saw it on the list, Strange Cousins from the West, it's like, I don't know if I know that album. I listened to it, don't know this.
I did not know this album.
I was like, there's not, and looking at the Spotify numbers of the tracks, not a lot of people know about this album. Yeah, so I don't have much on this one.
Well, it's weird that they just decided to make a straight ahead blues album.
Yeah.
And it's like, at this point, I mean,
becoming a theme for you tonight, Matt.
Well, okay. Let's just be honest. To make it as a musician for one fucking year is damn near impossible. It's almost impossible. It's like so fucking hard. To be able to maintain a career, still put out music, have people come to your shows, Clutch owes us nothing. You know what I mean? Like, They could tour on the old shit as a nostalgia act forever, ad infinitum, still make it on the festival circuits, still sell merch, and still do well. Fuck me for not liking their blues album. Who gives a shit? I don't like it. They don't care. I think we're in a good place.
Yeah, and this is also around the time too where Clutch is going independent, and that's the one
Yeah.
thing. Like now, Clutch is a business to themselves. I mean, they Weathermaker Music. They're putting out their own albums. They're doing all of the, even through COVID and everything else. We can get to that later. But during COVID, they were doing a lot of live streams and just really all self-contained. And they've definitely taken that approach. And the other thing too is we haven't even mentioned was same four guys the entire time.
Yeah.
Never even, a moment. I don't even know if they've had a tour where like someone else stepped in, maybe a bass player here and there or something, but I honestly don't think that they've had a single member change. They've had a couple of, keyboard organ guys over the years
That leave, that come and go. But
other than that, I mean, like the four guys that are on the first album are the four guys you get now.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
11
That's
albums
hard to
in.
do.
Yeah. You mentioned the live streams during the pandemic. I think Clutch and Psycho Stick were the two bands I saw consistently doing live streams that were consistently entertaining.
Yeah. Phil Anselmo did a couple. He did a down one, and he did a Phil Sings the Hits of Pantera.
American Standards did one. It was great. It was so heavy. 2013, Earth Rocker.
They make a rock and roll record. Straight, unabashed, straight ahead rock and roll record. I kind of like it, but it is Clutch, but it's also is it?
At this point, I think Clutch is whatever Clutch decides to be this album. I stand by one of my first statements about this band. I really enjoy it in whatever form it decides to take. I think if I had bought these albums along the way, I'd have a reason to listen to every single one. I'm not that super fan. I've got my favorite albums. They're sitting on my shelf right now. And when I listened to Earth Rocker for the first time a couple weeks ago, it was an up-tempo Clutch record that was a clear, different pile of choices in songs from the previous album. If anything, Clutch, you mentioned bar band earlier. I keep going back to that in my head. If anything, Clutch sounds like four buds that just want to play music, and rather than stick to the same formula, they just turn left every couple of years and keep the vibe fresh. I'd love to sit down with these guys and just ask them, is it a decision? Is it a question? Like, we're going to put this type of energy into the music now? Or is this, all right, we've been off for a couple weeks. What do you guys got? All right, this one's more up tempo, so we're just going to make a rock record now. Or is it a Neil Young thing where they just are constantly playing music and recording in the studio, and when they have a pile of cohesive things, they just put those things out? And this was the cohesive rock record. I don't dislike this album at all. I don't have a reason to listen to this over Clutch or over Blast Tyrant, me personally, but the album is fine. It's Clutch. We've gotten to that point in the discography. What is it? It's Clutch.
It's Clutch.
We were there a while back, I think.
Yeah, this is a definitely Earth Rocker hits, and it is definitely a track one. Stone Cold Stunner. I don't know what term I'm looking for
RKO
here.
out of nowhere.
What? Oh no, it's Clutch's music. But yeah, Earth Rocker just comes in, man. It just pounds
The
you, man.
most
And
electrifying album in rock and roll music today. Earth Rocker.
I love this quote from JP here on the Wikipedia here. It's the reason they wanted to do this album is they were on tour with Thin Lizzy and they realized there were really a lack of straight up rock and roll records coming out these days. So I think we wanted to make something that was front to back, a very focused kind of recording, a very efficient kind of recording, one that had good energy from beginning to end. And yeah, this is another machine that has come back to the fold to produce a Clutch album.
Machine, you do good work. And I personally want to thank you for all of your work with this glorious band, Clutch. And I really appreciate how good this rock record sounds. I'm not going to listen to Earth Rocker over the self-titled Clutch. There's nothing wrong with this album.
You too, Joe. I mean, Toomey and I did talk about tying you down and making you listen to Earth Rocker more. But we were like, nah, let's leave it to him. Let's let him make his own decisions.
I appreciate that, Matt. I really appreciate that. You know what I am going to force you guys to listen to? Psychic Warfare from 2015.
Dynamite.
Here's my cue for everybody. Because I'm realizing I needed to be driving while listening to all these albums or walking or running because they seem to all play better when you're doing some kind of like fast activity, but like listening to them didn't do it for me. But like I throw on X-Ray Visions in my car and the song gains like 5 like points. You know what I mean? It's just like, oh, let's fucking go. You know, let me watch some football clips with this song in the background. I'm in. NASCAR crashes. Perfect.
Oh, come on. At least say F1 if you're going to make that comparison.
No way, baby. Right. I want to see that guy driving into the wall and slingshot it over.
Yellow flags. Yellow flags. To this day, I understand why, but when they swerve left to right during a caution or at the beginning of the race, that always makes me laugh for some reason. It's like, guys, you know, if you drove straight, you'd save more gas. It's not as funny to everyone else as it is to me.
We've reached the slap happy
we're talking about Psychic Warfare, guys, and somehow that turned into Race Car. So where's the record by Clutch called Race Car Driver?
I need it.
It's got to happen.
Total side note. I was looking at Machine's discography here, and he did Head PE's Broke, and then the next album was Clutch's Pure Rock Fury. Like, bam, bam,
holy
back
shit.
to back. What a crazy 1-2 there.
So did somebody just make a big pot of coffee and say, all right, in the morning, you're going to do Head PE. And then when it's time to go home, hey, you got time to work on Clutch? I'm going to need another pot of coffee, guys. But it's going to get done. And that's how you kill a vibe. You got a live stream where we're talking about Clutch. Did we talk about
Will Putney's in the back of Machines? He's like, I'm trying to learn everything I can to make Counting Worms by Knocked Loose later in my life.
Arf, arf.
Did we talk about how clutch this album is yet?
Well, there it is. Next album.
Matt Naas is pushing us forward, and I'm going to let him do that because he is one of my guests. If Toomey wants to do it, I'll let him do it too. 2018, Book of Bad Decisions.
Great album cover.
Yeah. Caw. This album really left me with nothing but question marks over my head. I was like, from subject matter to musical choices to vocal choices, I was like, I don't know, guys. I don't know. Maybe the album title represents the work. A bunch of bad decisions. I don't know. This one didn't. I mean, I'm fairly lukewarm on the second half of their discography, but this one for me is like a no, thank you. I'm good.
Yeah, this one is just a kind of continuation of that new Clutch sound. You know, that Clutch sound you've been looking for. You know,
It's
listen
me,
to this,
your cousin,
Marvin.
Clutch.
Marvin Clutch.
Well,
Oh,
check
man,
this out.
Let Marvin Clutch in here. It's like a Gallagher thing, like Clutch 2.
right.
Go up,
Oh,
play
God.
Clutch's music.
I bought Clutch's act from him. Check this out. I'm going watermelons. I do it all for you, Josh.
Hey.
I do it for your cold indifference.
I'm so glad you guys came to do this episode tonight. Yeah, this album, I'm gonna go back to my Neil Young comparison and say, is this just the stuff that didn't work and they tried to put it out, or is this 2018 where they're trying something different, kind of, sort of, maybe? It's not the Clutch that I love, but I don't hate it. If it comes up on the shuffle, I'll listen to it, but I don't know how often this one comes up on the shuffle. I think I listened to it a couple days ago for the first time. And, you know, Sunrise on Slaughter Beach is coming up real soon. I'm not going to hold you guys to this one because I think we can say beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is, in fact, a Clutch album.
Right.
But it's a weird Clutch album. And that's hard to say. What is a weird Clutch album? Something that doesn't sound bluesy, something that doesn't sound hard rock-ish, something that doesn't pull from the music of the past. Like, what is a weird Clutch record? I think Book of Bad Decisions is the closest thing you're going to get to at this point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you there, Joe.
Hey, Joe. +1 on that one.
Thanks, Matt.
Before we dive into Sunrise on Slaughter Beach, I do want to bring up the Weathermaker series, Vault series, and we don't have to go into all these different tracks, but their cover of Fortunate Son is Chef's Kiss. It's just so good.
Oh, that's really good, huh?
And then they actually redid Space Grass for this, and I interviewed JP like right around the time that this came out, and I told him, I was just like, when I saw that you guys did Space Grass and like a new updated version of Space Grass, I was just like, you can't do that, but it might be the best ever re-record of a classic track that you'll ever hear. It's fantastic.
If I had this episode to plan over again, sometimes I plan these episodes based on just a vibe I get. And, you know, Clutch came up as, yeah, why haven't we talked about Clutch on a discography discussion? But after diving in, I have to agree. If you've experienced Clutch up till this point as one of those bands that you like, but you're not necessarily seeing what is so great about the band, the Weathermaker Vault series are a gem for Clutch. And there is a fan of the band right here, me, that is a little upset those are not albums and some of these other albums are.
Right.
Psychic Warfare, it's fine. But the Weathermaker Vault series, I think it's volume. I think there's a volume 2. That, or I've just seen a different variation of this album cover. Yeah, those are some tracks you need to listen to. So at this point, if you're wondering why we're still talking about Clutch, go listen to the Weathermaker series. Do you guys want to wrap this up? Sunrise on Slaughter Beach 2022, aka reason number 3 we're talking about Clutch tonight.
Another Clutch album.
Definitely. Hey, I think we can all say it's a Clutch album.
Do we know for certain that it's a Clutch album and not a new AI that was designed to create new Clutch albums
songs
for us?
I don't know. But again, the vocals are much more in that straight ahead rock vocalist vein. I mean, his voice is so very unique that it does carry the day on a lot of it. But sometimes it comes because he's not, it's weird because he's not doing the old, once again, here I am sticking the mud. I like the old shit. But because he's not doing some of those weird vocal tricks that he was doing earlier, I take his voice on face value when he's still singing about ridiculous things. And it's like, I don't know. The juxtaposition doesn't work for me as well. But God, again, if I saw this live, it would melt my face. Like, that's the thing. It's just like, it is a studio record that sounds very well produced, is incredibly clean, Clutch is driving rock songs. Whether that's a driving groove that can go for 12 minutes or a straight ahead bashing in the face, Kiss style rock and roll song. There was a couple moments where I was like, wow, these are really Kiss like songs, like I could see them doing this. I will take Clutch vocalists over Kiss vocalists pretty much any day of the week personally, because that's me. But like,
note to self, don't invite Matt to talk about any of the Kiss eras.
No, all I will do is make enemies. I'll be like,
You think you're going to be the one to make enemies? Trust me. I'm prepared.
No, thanks. But yeah, I didn't like it very much, but I feel like in the right circumstances, seeing them live, I would be like, that's on the new album? And someone would be like, yeah, it fucking rocks. And I listen to it in my car speeding home, and I would be like, I have a new driving song.
Another fun fact, Clutch live fact is they never play the same set twice, and they come up with a new set list daily. Another thing, talking to JP, I think they start the tour with like 50 songs in the can that they can pull out, and then they a day of show, they just throw together a set, and that's what they play that night.
Wow. Well, they have the chops. Again, their musicianship is next level. It's top shelf. You don't get to do it this long unless you're good. Period. Like, it just doesn't happen.
It is good. It's not very different.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of options when you're listening to Clutch. And I'm going to get us to final thoughts here in a moment. I think Clutch, they have all of the tools and the paintbrushes and the colors available to them that every musician has, but so many are afraid to just grab a hold of it and try something old. And this record in 2022, it sounds like Clutch. And I really enjoy that about this album, because if I'm a Clutch fan, I want consistency. I really don't want weird. As far into the weird that I want this band to go is, oh, they decided to have a Tom Waits vibe on this track. But I want them to come back and just groove. And I think this album, if it's lacking anything, it's lacking some of the extreme goofiness from the previous records, and especially the beginning of the discography. Again, repeat myself. Maybe I'm an AI. I don't hate this. It's just another Clutch record, and I'm glad this band is still around. You guys want to wrap this up? Final thoughts?
Let's do it.
Josh Toomey of the Talk to Me podcast. Talk to me about Clutch and your final thoughts. Go!
Final thoughts on Clutch. I mean, if you want to go back to the archives of the Talk to Me podcast, there's interviews with Neil Fallon, Dan Maines, and JP throughout there. I need to get Tim on the podcast. Haven't had him on yet, but go check those out. Clutch is one of those things, man. Like I'm a big fan of Taco Bell, and there's some mainstays I go. Every time I go, I'm a sucker for like whatever the new thing is that week or that month. I got to get one of those, like the new crunch wrap, this, that, and the other thing. But I also got to get some soft tacos. And to me, Clutch is like one of those is the soft tacos. You know, you want them to give you a little bit of extra, but you always want your soft tacos. And Clutch is just consistent. You know, from going through this discography for this show, even though Matt's not big on the later stuff, there's still like that through line from the first album to the latest album of just like that Clutch sound is there, and I'm here for it, man. I think that they've been consistent, and they could have fallen off. I mean, and during the new metal craze and whatnot, I mean, they could have just disappeared, and they trudged through, and they've their will has paid off. And I love them, man. I think they're a great band. Great band to go see live. If you want to go have a good night out, go to a Clutch show. And love them, and love the discography. And Taco
Matt
Bell.
Naas,
And Taco Bell is good.
the Roach Koach. I need your final thoughts and your recipe for success at Taco Bell.
Oh, well, recipe for success at Taco Bell is, you got to find your staples. And I am also a soft taco guy from Taco Bell. And I'll tell you what, I've tried their multiple sauces. I'm a mild guy. It
I
has
agree.
flavor.
I am right there with you, man. I'm right there with you.
It has flavor, and it tastes the least like batteries. Where the hot definitely taste of, if you want to clean a penny, grab yourself some hot. Transitioning to Clutch, the band we're talking about today, what a delight to listen to the albums. Very interesting to kind of really have a demarcation point in the discography where I'm just like into this, not so much into this. Not their fault, just personal preference. 23 years in the business, that's fucking
Clutch.
insane. That's Clutch. Actually, it's even longer than that. It's like it's almost 33 years in the business. So yeah, nothing but good things to say about Clutch. I want to see them live now. I think I will make that an effort to see them on the next on this tour, because I think that would be a good time. I think that they know how to throw down, and I think I would be blown away, and I might have to wear earplugs, as I have a feeling it will be really fucking loud.
Clutch is one of the bands you get to hold up your sign at the end of the conversation and say, guys, don't forget Clutch. Every time there's a new throwback band or a group of musicians that want to bring back that 70s or 60s vibe of, we have actual amps and we actually mic our stuff and we play actual music. We don't create compositions on a laptop or substitute sounds. We are that band that you're looking for, because nobody actually plays music anymore, right? You get to hold up your sign and say, guys, what about Clutch? This band started off very goofy, very not serious. And I don't think they have become more than that. At the end of it all, Clutch is a group of musicians that will play a catchy song, have an interesting hook. I said interesting because they don't all catch with me, but you're going to enjoy listening to Clutch throughout all of it. 11 records we talked about tonight, over almost a 30-year studio discography of a career. This band is everything and consistent. They go in every direction that you love when you're listening to classic rock, hard rock, metal, old school Black Sabbath sounding, to Tom Waits and everywhere in between. They've even got some extremely heavy vocals in there for fans of modern hardcore. I'm not calling this band a hardcore band, but they have a vibe that is theirs and everybody else's all at the same time. I don't think they're some big secret. I don't think they should be. I think they're a band to be enjoyed. And I agree with Matt. After listening to Clutch for a couple months now, I'm really starting to ask myself, why do I not go see this band when they're on tour? Because it has been almost 30 years. How much more tour do they have? I hope a lot. I hope in 20 years we're talking about Clutch the way we talk about the Grateful Dead now, how they toured for decades. And if you want to criticize Clutch for not really having original ideas, well, it's Clutch. Their original idea is that when they get together, this is the music they create, and listen to it and tell me it's not enjoyable. If it has one thing that stands out above anything else throughout the discography, whenever they're making these little references to that other band you like, when the record comes out, it doesn't sound like Led Zeppelin. It doesn't sound like Black Sabbath. It might have that vibe, but what it sounds like is Clutch. And I think the band has a founding definitive record in the self-titled Clutch that would set the tone for the next 20 plus years and allow them to be, I don't want to say mediocre, but because I don't think this band is mediocre. I just think when they get together, they write songs, and the greatest musicians of all time, that's all they do is write songs and play music. So listen to Clutch. They play music and they're really fucking good at it. Matt Naas, what is your album of the week?
Oh shit. I didn't grow up with the Beatles. So I didn't grow up with them. So Revolver just got a repress in stereo. And I'm listening
Is that a good
to
thing?
it. Yeah, they fixed a lot of the technical issues that the original stereo press had. Old Beatle heads will tell you that mono is it for the Beatles. I have no idea. Like I said, I'm late to the party, but it's pretty good. it's pretty good. Pretty good songwriters there. Pretty good. They do pretty well. I've been listening to Danny Brown's Atrocity Exhibition again, and yeah, that album is fucking bonkers. Very good. Very good. So, yeah, 2 albums I'm listening to right now.
Josh Toomey, what about you?
I was unaware we were going to have homework other than the actual homework that we did for the album.
Understood there would be no math.
During the discography discussion.
I've been listening to a ton of Snapcase's Progression Through Unlearning. 25th anniversary is coming up. I recently did an interview with the vocalist all about the album. Probably one of my favorite albums from the late 90s, and even, obviously to this day. If you want a great vintage hardcore record that came out in 97, hitting its 25th anniversary. Came out in 97. That's
I remember when that album came out.
So yeah, classic album, and yeah, go check that out.
That one.
Yeah, I grew up with that one. I did not grow up listening to the Beatles. like me, I honestly I didn't listen to the Beatles until probably much later in life. Yeah, they can write a tune though. I agree with you, Matt.
Write a song.
Speaking of, and another thing that I've been listening to a lot was the Misfits. Those boys can write some songs too. So
I was super late to the party on the Misfits.
Yeah,
like easily in my 30s by the time I heard the Misfits for the first time.
Yeah. So there you go.
For me, it is a local band. In My Silence, they're on Bandcamp. I might even put a link in with my album of the week. For all that shit I talked about modern metal over the course of this podcast and still occasionally talk, including tonight, there are times where it's not so absurd. And there are times, even if it is so absurd, I enjoy it. Their 2020 record, A World Gone Quiet, was just casually passed along to me in the middle of a Shadow Warrior 2 gaming session. And I gotta say, you ever have that moment where you're surprised by a local band? Happened to me, and I really enjoyed it. So I want everyone to go to Bandcamp and buy their albums and listen to these records. They definitely sound like 2018 and 2020, and that is 100% by design. These guys are fucking killer. Matt, Naas, Josh, Toomey. Guys, I had a blast tonight. What about you? Clutch was so much fun. And then they were clutch.
They were clutch.
It was a clutch.
No, I definitely had a lot of fun. It's always great to talk to you. Always great to talk to Joe. Always great to talk to Matt. So yeah, definitely had a blast. And one of my, I like catchphrase of mine, one of my all-time favorite bands.
All-time favorites.
Well, who wants to go first here? I'm gonna say eeny, meeny, miny, Matt. What is going on at Gabber Media? What is going on in the Roach Koach? I need all the plugs right now. You have 30 seconds just to prove we're serious. You have 29. Go.
Yeah, check everything that we're doing out at gabbermedia.com. In the Roach Koach, we are saying bye, babe, to our beautiful co-host, Jennifer Sosha. She's been with us since the beginning, but she is bowing out. Her last episodes will be at the end of this year. All other information at roachkoach.com. That's Coach with a K.
Josh Toomey, the Talk to Me podcast.
Ooh.
You know it. You love it. We love it. What is going on Talk to Me?
From here on out for the rest of the year, it's pretty much a full-on interview on Tuesdays, a interview from Louder Than Life on Wednesdays, and then a kind of a news breakdown, who's tweeting type episode on Thursdays. So, where co-host Chris Aiken and I, we kind of break down what's going on in the metal news. So yeah, we're pretty much right now getting like 3 Talk to Me's a week, and it's killing me to get these out, but it's been fun. Had a lot of fun at Louder Than Life, doing all the interviews there, and those are kind of just matriculating out for the rest of the year, along with full-on interviews. Booked an interview today with one Mike Mushak of Stained and Saint Sonia fame, so that'll be coming out soon. And
you're gonna let me co-host that, right?
Absolutely not. But yeah, so check me out, everything over on Knotfest YouTube, knotfest.com, and talktomepod.com. That's Toomey with a T.
Can I bring up a controversial topic from like 4 weeks ago? Pantera is going on tour.
That's right.
Are you going to be there? I
Absolutely.
have my concerns, and I don't know if I'm allowed to call it Pantera.
Listen,
help.
There are a lot of bands
for your help, Toomey.
There are a lot of bands that go on tour that only have the singer or the drummer or the guitar player. Just because, and this is a situation where we can't have the guitar player and the drummer out there for obvious reasons. The only concerns honestly I have are, is Phil's voice going to hold up? Because Phil hasn't sounded so great over the last few years. And so if Phil, I have no problems with Rex. I have no problems with Zach. I have no problems with Charlie. I think they'll all do well. I'm just curious to see how Phil sounds in all of this. But like I've said many times on my show, and I will now say on your show, if it comes anywhere near me, I will be there with bells on up front, singing every word and having a blast. And as long as it says Pantera on the big, behind them, on fire with the light show. I mean, I want to see a Pantera show, because when you went to go see Pantera in the 90s, it was fire, it was dragons, it was, everything was going on, incredible light shows. So it better not just be like a couple of screens up there with old footage or something like that. I want to see a full-on stadium arena rock show with Pantera.
I think I would have been okay with a Pantera that included Zakk Wylde, as long as Vinnie Paul was still part of it, I'm having a hard time saying it's Pantera without the Abbott brothers. And maybe when some of the footage starts to come out, I'll change my opinion on that. It's like we're getting half of what we all wanted, but we never got.
I understand that. It's like it's a night with Phil Anselmo singing the songs of Pantera with a couple. Well, who's left? I don't know because
Just Rex at this point.
So, I mean, I get what Toomey's saying. I get what you're saying. I wasn't a Pantera fan, so I wouldn't be going regardless. Why do I do so much metal stuff when obviously I hate metal? That's it, right, guys? What am I doing?
Well, like Matt, your favorite band, Korn, is like it's there for a minute there were some shows where you had Filthy's not been out there. Correct. And then Head and Monkey both had issues with COVID, so there was replacement guys there. So there for a few shows, it was Jonathan Davis and Monkey with Ray, who's not an original member, on drums, with I think his name was like Raw on bass, and then like random dude with dreadlocks on guitar. 2 original members of the band. Like bands are like that now.
The Four Tops did that. I mean, what are we talking about? Like at the end, it was like 1 4 Top.
Top.
It was a top.
Top.
I mean, there isn't a hardcore band around that has kept all of its original members.
Yeah,
and they still tour with the name. And
except for Clutch.
Bands.
Yeah, except for Clutch and Seven Dust.
Yeah, Seven Dust. But I mean, yes. So to that point, I get it. I wasn't upset about it. I was just like, this is it always brings up those questions. But I mean, shit. If they can tour Primer, not Primer, you toured with Primer. If they can tour Static X, I think the Pantera thing is a lot easier than
Zakk will not be on stage in a Dimebag death mask.
That would be awful.
Absolutely terrible. Well,
but yes, I will be there as long as some of these. I can't wait for these first videos to come out. Some of the first Pantera shows will be Knotfest shows, which are kind of cool. I saw the head of Knotfest at Louder Than Life. I told him on the podcast, I was like, hey, do you need to send me to Brazil for these shows, in Chile and wherever we need to go? I will go happily to cover these shows for the website, but we'll see what happens.
Nice.
I even looked up plane tickets just to see because I know if I got myself there, I would be fine, Knotfest wise, because obviously I work for Knotfest. So it's like, I was like $3,000. I was like $3,000 to fly to to fly to Brazil. And I'm talking to the wife. I'm like, just hear me out. and it did not go well.
And on that note, I'm going to say thank you for watching this video. If you're live and in the chat, if you're on Discord at discord.discussmetal.com, we are always talking about metal. We are hanging out. We play games sometimes, but I want to say thank you again, as I always do, to everyone for listening to this podcast. Thank you for liking. Thank you for listening and for subscribing. If you are not a subscriber, then you can find everything Discography Discussion at discussmetal.com. This has been episode 285 of Discography Discussion. Thank you for listening. And for everyone watching live on YouTube, take care.